You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Todd Richards here, Roots, Hearts,
and Soul.
You are listening to Roots, Heart, and
Soul. Yeah,
Roots,
baby.
Heart, and Soul podcast.
Stephan and I are launching this podcast based off cookbook Roots, Heart, and Soul by myself, Todd Richards, with a great help from Chef Stephan.
We're going to be hearing stories from Africa all the way to the Caribbean, all the way to the Americas. It's going to be something special.
Chef, what's happening?
Bow!
You're
What's
looking
up,
good,
buddy?
my friend. You're looking good,
What's
my friend.
up, buddy? Thank you, man.
You look the most relaxed I've seen you in weeks. Yeah,
I am.
yeah.
I am.
Got your hat on, looking good, feeling good.
I am, man. I am. We've been doing some soul searching.
yeah. To get out of this hot as Hades weather we're in. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Especially up there in NY where you're at. You guys are hotter than it is in Atlanta, so that's very rare. You guys are taking the hot out of hot Atlanta for sure. But that's life. That's life in the fast lane of what's going on in the world.
Life in the fast lane is life in the fast lane. We don't have much of a choice. It is what it is. But listen,
yes.
I realize something very important.
Uh-oh. You're starting off already. That's good.
Mindset.
Yes.
Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We can focus on everything that's wrong in our lives, including the struggles that we go through on a daily basis, and I believe that everybody goes through some kind of a struggle on of some kind of another. So I saw this quote the other day, right? And it says, I thought I had a lot of problems when I saw that I could not walk anymore or that I had mobility problems. But then I saw another guy who had no feet and he wasn't bitching and whining. So,
well, let the Church of Roots, Heart, Soul say amen to that.
So listen. I know we're not supposed to announce anything yet, but how's been your week? How's been your week?
Week has been great. Hitting the road tomorrow. Made some dinner tonight. The week has been great, and to your point, every day is great. We're fortunate people. We are very, very fortunate people.
We are.
This podcast is a fortune for us. The people that we have on is fortune. So, I just want to cook delicious food for delicious people, man. That's all I want to do.
And this is the only thing that I would like to get back into is to cook delicious food for delicious people.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm doing something else.
Okay.
I'm staying busy.
Of course you are. He wouldn't be Stephan if he
I'm
always
staying busy. I'm staying busy. Listen,
right?
I'm staying busy.
Right.
But listen, I've been trying to get this young lady on the podcast for a little while now.
Okay.
She is one of the most amazing person I've had the pleasure of meeting in the last 15 years.
Wow.
And not only did I have the pleasure of meeting her, but I had the pleasure of having her in Haiti for the festival. And I want to give a big shout out to my sister, Chef Erica Davis, for making that happen.
Mm-hmm.
She is the reason why Colleen Vincent is part of my circle.
Wow, that says a lot. That says a lot. So let's
Period.
kick
End
this
of
off.
story.
Very good. Let's kick this off
Well,
right.
let's welcome together, because I know you're
Yeah.
as excited as I am to have her on the
Oh man, I look
podcast.
like a kid. I'm rocking in my seat. I look like a kid in the candy stuff, you know.
So let's give her the root. Let's give her the roots, heart, and soul welcome.
So, on behalf of everyone listening to Roots Heart and Soul, you're listening to Roots Heart
And soul.
Roots Heart and Soul podcast. Todd, Chef Todd Richards, of course, the great Chef Stephan on Heritage Radio Network, and it is our pleasure to have Colleen Vincent on Roots Heart and Soul podcast on a scorching Tuesday in the Americas. That's
It's hot,
North,
man.
Central,
It's hot,
and
man.
Southern. But everyone looks good. Everyone is staying cool. So let's get started. Chef Stephan, let's go.
Absolutely. What a treat to finally have her on the podcast.
Yes.
Based in New York City.
That's
Hit
right.
why.
Miss Coley Cole is the co-founder of Black Food Folks, an influential fellowship of Black excellence in food and drink, and executive producer of Black Desserts. Using her platform at the James Beard Foundation, she championed for diverse leadership and access across the hospitality industry. As VP of Community, she launched the Legacy Mentorship Network, an executive leadership and networking program that trains and links food and beverage professionals across sectors of experience levels. Colleen has been featured on numerous panels, including Essence Fest and Oprah Winfrey's Live Live Your Best Life, named Trailblazer by On Dine Diaspora's 31 Black Women in Food list, and a person to watch in Bibe magazine. She's a trailblazer by definition. But
By definition.
Way more than that.
Okay.
She is way more than that.
All right.
Apart from being an amazing human being. So,
Absolutely.
Chef Todd.
Yes, sir.
I'll let you start, baby.
Okay.
Oh man, thank you so much
Colleen.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Sometimes in these podcasts, it's a lot of Q&A, but sometimes it's just catching up with old friends.
Yeah,
And that's the beauty of having a person like you on, because we get to do both at the same time.
My pleasure.
And,
Absolutely.
And so over the last couple of weeks, Stephan and I have been talking about this cultural understanding of what Black food is. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it came so bubbled up to us is because we see in food where we have this community of Black food, whether you're from Haiti or you're from the south side of Chicago like I am, or you're in LA and everything. But we see in other art forms, such as we saw at the Essence Music Festival, where there was this cultural divide about, Black ways, who owns Black culture and things like that, which is really something difficult for even us to, Stephan and I, to figure it out. And as a thought leader on Black culture, especially when it comes to Black foodways, what is your position? I mean, what is Black culture in food in this great United States of America?
Oh, then you just came out the gate with like this huge question, but sure.
Oh, hey, this is our first time. This is your first time.
This is how we do. This is how we do.
All right. So it just so happens that I spend a lot of time on social media, and I know that this particular conversation, which is not limited to food, has been kind of happening over the last 2 or 3 years. And there's some people who have arguments in bad faith, but it is a genuine question. And I think that what my position is that in the United States, as a first generation American, even though I was born in Canada, I have to pay homage to the African American experience before anything else. Why? Because it is because of African American civil rights efforts, struggles, advocacy that my family was able to come to the United States. So that's the first thing that I always want to lay on the table. The reason why there is a Black diaspora in the United States is because of the work of African Americans. And so, that being said, there's an identity crisis going on of which Black culture is the most authentic, which one is the most representative of Black culture. And I think that there's sometimes a hubris in living in America, and American hegemony is worldwide. American culture is worldwide, and it's not by any instance. It's incident. It's literally a concerted effort to promote American culture as the target culture. However, the beauty of America, despite the fact that it has a bumpy road around all of this, is the multiculturalism. Even the African American experience of food came because of different tribes coming together, different tribal people coming together, enslaved Africans who came from all over, coalescing around what was available. And so, the multiculturalism of Black culture in the New World has always existed from the get-go. And so what my position is that I want us to get to a place where food that is Black is honored with regional distinction, honored with ethnic distinction, honored with linguistic distinction. Because you have a country like Italy, right? You have a country like Italy, and people talk about Calabrian cuisine and Roman cuisine. It's allowed to have regions, and here we have a nation of people that come from a continent that has 54 countries, and then you have the Caribbean and Latin America, and then you have the United States. We should be allowed to have the distinction of regionality and not something that is crowned Black food. Black food inherently is something that is multicultural, multilinguistic, has numerous influences, and there are things that appear all over, right? There are very distinct things that appear all over in Black food. But even those things didn't necessarily start in Africa. The Columbian Exchange actually brought a lot of produce to Africa that wasn't native to Africa. So all of that being said, is that why can't Black food be an umbrella? Like, why can't it be an umbrella? And each corner of that umbrella has its own specificity, has its own authenticity. But inherently, especially New World Black culture, is one of multiculturalism and exchange, and so it will change again. So
absolutely,
we shouldn't get stuck. We can't get stuck in like, this is it, because yeah.
So my follow-up question to you is, why does Black food needs to be defined, and who is trying to define it? And are we, in retrospect, having an identity crisis within the Black culture?
So my experience with Black chefs across the piece is that everybody is doing what they love and cooking what they love. And that is that's what it should mean to be a Black chef. Like, that you are a chef, you are inspired by whatever you're inspired by, and you should be able to make whatever you're inspired by. Now, that being said, Gregory Gourdet started out Pan-Asian, right? And then after that dinner, especially that he had at the Beard House, with all the Haitian, yes, exactly.
And travel to Haiti.
He was inspired to open a restaurant that gave homage to his culture. And I think Black chefs should be allowed to do that. Black culinarians should be allowed to exist in whatever space they want to, provided that they've done the work. I'm not going to talk about the fact that there are white chefs who, there's certain people that's cooking Mexican cuisine. They're not Mexican. They're considered the primary person. Nobody questions that, or
Nobody questions that.
Very few people question that. There are lots of Asian fusion chefs who have no Asian heritage of any kind, and nobody questions it, right? And so I think that Black chefs should be inspired by whatever it is. It doesn't have to be my culture, your culture, wife's culture. It could be granny, sure, but it could be a trip abroad. It could be a chef hero. It could be a book one read. And so, I mean, people were cooking. What was it called? The Upstairs Downstairs TV show that came like before the Gilded Age, that Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey, yeah.
Right, Downton Abbey. At the Beard House, we had a dinner inspired by Downton Abbey. Nobody lived through the 1800s, and nobody there had any actual connection, any actual ancestral connection to that era. But they were inspired by this show and this cookbook. And so, that's what happened. And I think that, hey, if you're inspired by the show Hannibal, which is a great show, by the way, not Hannibal's ingredients, but if you're inspired by the show Hannibal, then you should be able to cook that. The only sin to me in cooking, the biggest sin, is that the food don't taste good.
Correct.
That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing. It doesn't taste good. There's no point.
Chef Todd Richards, of course, the great Chef Stephan, Heritage Radio Network. So, Colin, you said the umbrella, and umbrella really is really apropos for my next question, because it's Black culture, and then there's, front facing. We understand that, but then we all then get put into the category of soul.
Yep.
And soul food. And a person like myself from Chicago, who has a very, very different interpretation of soul food. That as I return to the South, there's a whole different version. I mean, just the conversation of sugar on grits, it will spark, all types of fighting and things like that. So, we know there's differences, but what is the responsibility of us as, I would say, food professionals to educate people on those differences? Sure. Is it our responsibility, or do we hold them with their own feet to the fire, to go out and understand the differences themselves?
Personally, I think, in many ways we are past the point of educating people, because it was an effort to educate people so that they would see our worth and value. So bump that, right? We must know our own worth and value. And I think that our responsibility as food professionals is to archive whatever it is we're doing, archive it. Podcasts, books, whatever media possible, because, the reason why there's so much confusion, I mean, there's the obvious, but part of that is that the ability to share that information and own it was taken away, right? People weren't allowed to speak their own language anymore. People weren't allowed to read. People weren't allowed to write. And so there were all these recipes that were attributed until very recently to Southern cuisine, like everybody owned it when there was some specificity to it. And I think that Black food professionals' responsibility is to archive so that we may attribute. I think that educating whomever, that is a choice, but it is something that one can beat one's head against the wall over and over and over again. And in a day and age where we have so many Black food professionals who are archivists, who are storytellers, who are writers, who are journalists, who are, award-winning cookbook authors. It is our responsibility to make sure that those people and, our families, our collective Black families, knows and understands the attribution of things and doesn't repeat the mistakes of the more mainstream culture.
That's fantastic. I didn't even think about it that way. Go ahead, Stephan. I can see Stephan's wheels turning over there.
Yeah. Oh no! Listen, I'm just excited to just have her in a conversation.
Right.
So, being from the Caribbean, with you having a Caribbean heritage, there's been a conversation for a very long time about Caribbean cuisine and its place in the food world.
Right.
And it happened that someone else, Chef David Chang, in a podcast, had to talk about Caribbean cuisine as being the next great thing to come out for it to start making any kind of noise. Whereas we have some of the most amazing Caribbean chefs on the planet. Simeon Hall, Chef Digby Stitteron, Chef Sean Benjamin. I have a list.
Yeah, Tavo Bristol Joseph.
I have a list.
Right.
Okay. Chef Gregory Gourdet. I mean, the list is long.
These are the ones that are, and these are the ones on this side of the pond. There are a whole bunch.
There are
in
chefs
England as well.
In England that's doing amazing things.
Yep.
And in France, and I mean, why did it have to take someone like David Chang to talk about it for it to resonate with the rest of the world?
So, they're on same social media. There are these funny things. I laugh because it's kind of true, about how they make it collectively Caribbean, but you go to a Jamaican restaurant and how badly they treat you is in direct inverse to how good the food is. And one thing that has astounded me for as long as I have been in and around this industry is how devalued Caribbean food is, because the ingredients that make Caribbean food, many of them do not grow here in the United States, right? And
Right.
there are other cuisines from Europe that are on high, they're touted as like the top level cuisine, and they are, in terms of respectfly, exactly. But the ingredients are common. Are common, right? And there is a way to cook them. Whereas in the Caribbean, first of all, linguistically, the Caribbean is extremely diverse. But in the American mind, only one country exists. And even in terms of like this chain of Caribbean islands, Jamaica is not even in the chain of Caribbean islands. I just want to, let people know geographically it is,
right.
but it's not
Right.
even in the chain. And so if we're counting that, then we must also include, the Hondurans, Panamanians, Belizeans, right? Because a lot of Caribbean people,
Colombians,
travel there. So, there are links between. So the fact of the matter is, at the very least, there's 3 languages spoken. There are different tribes in each of those areas. And even within the English-speaking Caribbean, there are differences. I remember,
yes, there are.
Yes, I remember going to the family reunion, and I have it recorded. Whereas I was talking, I think it was Chef Picky, and he called it oil down. I said, look, I'm Grenadian. He's Trinidadian. They're very close to each other. On a good day, you might be able to see like the Trinidad from Grenada. It's not a long ride, right? So there's a lot of Trinidadians living in Grenada, a lot of Grenadians who grew up in Trinidad, right? So we have links, but what he made was not oil down. And the reason I know that is because I have 2 Grenadian parents and 4 Grenadian grandparents, and so on and so forth. So I had to have a conversation with him about that, right?
Right.
And do I know Chef Picky?
Yeah, I love
Chef
him.
Picky?
I love
I love him to death.
And it was a funny conversation, but I recorded it because I was like, we're gonna have this conversation, and it's because there are specificities to culture that Caribbean is also an umbrella. It's a smaller umbrella than like Black culture, Black food, but it is an umbrella. It's an umbrella. When I went to Haiti, first of all, mind you, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, right? So I remember the anti-Haitian sentiment of Black communities, including mine, including other Caribbean people, right? And the propaganda of the news, the same way they say Africa is a place of of strife and barren, is a similar vibe, that they gave to Haiti. When I went there, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, full of people, hustlers, right? People working hard, and full of creative people. Went up in the mountains, saw that beautiful art. I felt very inspired. And the food was absolutely delicious and very different from what we're eating in Grenada. It's very different because
even different from what Haitians cook here in the United States.
Right. I mean, certainly it's going to be less spicy here in the United States. But the fact of the matter is that each of these countries have their own culture. So we're all touching the Caribbean Sea, but we have our own culture. It has to do with, when slavery ended in certain places. It has to do with, which arrival of immigrants came after slavery ended. It has to do with the terroir. It has to do with, what the soil is like. Like all of these things are part of what constitute what grows in these places. And so there are commonalities, but they are, and so when I hear, for the longest time, people say Caribbean food. Now I grew up in Flatbush, so I am going to be the most picky about this. I'm going to be the most particular about this, right? Because this is, where I live. Where I live, a Jamaican restaurant is a Jamaican restaurant. A Trinidadian restaurant, a Trinidadian restaurant. There's a Grenadian soup shop. You're going to get oil down there on like Tuesdays and Saturdays. That is a Grenadian place. Like that is the way it is here, right? Absolutely. But people here, Caribbean, first thing that they, oxtails, right? And rice and peas, right?
And jerk chicken.
Right, and jerk chicken.
Right.
And so, and I will be as broad about this as possible. There was somebody who was doing something in my home country and had asked a particular chef about like jerk and a jerk recipe. We don't have jerk in Grenada. We don't do that. We don't have jerk. Like Jamaica's all the way over here. It's closer to Florida than it is to Grenada. We don't have that, and it was a fellow Black person. That was, that is the rub of the whole thing. That same respect and of difference in cultures has to be afforded both here in terms of like somebody who's from the Midwest. Somebody Black from the Midwest is going to be different and cooking different things than somebody Black from the West Coast, or somebody in Florida, somebody in Philadelphia. They cook things. There are tinges, the remembrance that happens, but those are different places with different ingredients and different terroirs and different sets of people who migrated there. And so there are commonalities, but there are enough differences to make the distinction,
Wow. What's so great about that, Chef Todd Richards, of course, the great Chef Stephan, Roots Heart Soul podcast, Heritage Radio Network, is that, I appreciate, David Chain's comments. I do. But, I see why we gatekeep a lot of these things, in the sense that one comment can open the door for 1,000 of other chefs of not the same heritage to come in, try to, what they say, learn, and I'll give them credit if they truly learn it, and then try to mass produce it, in certain forms, and then take it and run off with it. And we're protective of that, just in from neighborhood to neighborhood, we're protective of it. West Coast barbecue is totally different than Chicago barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago and St. Louis are probably the closest two barbecue regions outside of Kansas City and St. Louis, which are two different barbecues in the same state.
Right.
That people won't even recognize. But what is the role of us as, how do we defend against that taking of foodways, and into mass communities of mass productions without giving it the credence and also the monetary value, which is probably even more important, for us to protect ourselves from that kind of exploitation?
So, I have lots of thoughts on that. And I think one of them is that we got to stop hyping stuff that's mediocre, first of all, right? We got to stop being pleased that, XYZ, person is cooking our food. Like, we have to stop doing that. We have to, advocate, if one is on a culinary tract of some kind, we have to advocate for authenticity in the cuisine. Like, if somebody makes an oil down is not pretty, and you can't plate it the way, but
Right.
there is a way to plate oil down. There's a way to place oil down, and if you cook it the right way, it should have the 3 colors of the Grenadian flag, right? And so those kinds of nuances are things that we should hold close to the vest, right? We can share amongst ourselves, but if somebody's not doing it right, call them out. Call them out. And if they're not willing to learn to do it better, we shouldn't platform them. We should not buy their products. We should not, we just shouldn't.
So very funny anecdote.
Right.
So, and shout out to Chef Irie for wanting to do it right.
Yeah.
So Irie was called upon to prepare soup jumu, our national pumpkin soup, for a movie called Liberty in a Soup that was being done in Haiti. That was being shown in Miami. And Chef Irie took the time not only to call upon his Haitian chef brothers for the recipe, but he actually came to our house and learned how to make the soup.
That's right.
And an unfortunate situation happened a couple years ago where in his there's a recipe in Chef Marcus Samuelson's Rise that he ended up publishing in a magazine, which I don't think he did
no malicious.
No, it's never malicious.
It's not a malicious way.
Yeah.
But I don't think he understood the historical significance and how important that soup is, not only in the historical content, but a cultural content,
right,
of what Haiti is. And in doing the soup, he called it Liberty Soup, but then the recipe was completely you know, and there was a lot of conversation, backlash, um, and so forth. And
I
I had to,
remember.
because of Gregory, I was able to have a conversation with him and explain to him why the response was what it was. Um, and luckily, the magazine had a call with me and Nadej, and they did a whole
Retraction.
no, not retraction, but
Not
more like they did a piece on the conversation. I think that was the beginning of something different, because they just had a new director of publishing who happened to be black. So I think she understood the situation much better than if it was a counterpart. So, and I so agree with you. If there is a respect and authenticity and a respect on the cultural significance of certain dishes, that you cannot go right or left.
right.
If you're gonna call it this, it's gotta be that.
Yeah. And I think, look at things like the way Kentucky like owns bourbon, right? Or the way like Champagne France,
On champagne.
yeah, owns champagne. There's no reason why, you know, there's no reason why there shouldn't be, even if there is a cultural institution of some kind that helps, I want to say agricultural boards, but maybe even, at the minister level, helps countries essentially say, when this leaves here, to call it this, it has to look like this, right? There's no reason, because you have a big country like Trinidad, which Chef Picky is from, right? A big, big country, relatively speaking.
Right.
It's a big country to small island people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad has a whole department devoted to TNT Carnival. They have written white papers on TNT Carnival. It is one of their biggest
Absolutely.
cultural markers, and so they have
Absolutely.
white papers on that, because people, outside of people who are not engaged in Carnival, especially on a spiritual level, think it's one big party, when
Yes. Yeah.
it's
Right.
and it is a lot of fun, and like, it is, you're going to be up for days, there's
Mhm.
a lot. But even within Carnival itself, there are particulars. Carnival is essentially, a celebration, a post-slavery celebration of sorts. And there are nuances to it. For example, in Grenada, right, we have short knee, right? Short knee is Grenadian. It does not, it's only in Grenada, right? Short knee are these men that wear fencing masks and essentially clown outfits, and they throw powder all over the place. Short knee, essentially, they used to fence for entertainment for master and memorize and recite Shakespeare, like Shakespearean plays,
Right.
right? And then eventually, like, it was like gangs and stuff like that. But the point is that that is very specific, right?
That
That's
is
very specific. And Grenada's a very small country, right? And all of that is to say that things like pickles, very specific. If it
absolutely.
doesn't look like that, right? If it doesn't look like that, then people should not be able to use the name. They shouldn't be able to use the name.
And you could say this is my variation, or this is
Inspired by,
inspired by Picles,
not a
or
variation. I'm saying inspired by.
this is inspired by Picles.
Yeah.
And you want to put red cabbage, or you want to do, you want to add some other stuff to it. That's fine.
Right.
But let me ask a question on that to you both, though. I mean, because say it's region specific that you get into, even though ingredients can be found worldwide, now, but still, I mean, in your region, if red cabbage grows more than green cabbage, do they still have to use the moniker inspired by, or can it still be regional specific to what's grown in that area?
I'm of two ways about it, because again, like Kentucky is like other people. Kentucky is like, this is bourbon and it comes from here and this is what it looks like. That's
correct.
It.
Right.
Everybody else can make it. It has a different name.
Mm-hmm.
And, the people who use that opportunity to give it a different name and put their own stamp on it, right? Because that is what food is people recreating things and then mixing it up, remixing it, and then it turns into something else. So people should take that opportunity to, if they're using their own regional ingredients, they should take that opportunity to come up with a name for it. We need
that's a great answer.
We need to own stuff, I think
that.
People need to own stuff,
right.
Because chefs are artists. They're not just recreating, they're not just cooking what somebody else cooked. Chefs are artists.
They're putting their own touches on it.
Own spin.
Right.
And they're also putting their own personal experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Into whatever they're cooking.
Right.
Because Todd's experience in going down to Haiti is not the same as yours, and it's not the same as Chef Irie's. And I think even though all of you guys were there for the same particular reason, but your experience, your who you met, what you ate, had a different effect on each one of you.
Right.
And when you cook, and when you come back and say, "Oh, I want to try doing this. I want to try recreating this," it's gonna come out differently.
Right.
Unless you're following a recipe to the letter.
Exactly. And that's okay. That's okay. When
and I'm okay with that.
Right. When our families immigrate, all of our families, if they left the South or they left the islands, whatever, they came up here or wherever and they use what they get, and then it becomes something else. Like Chinese cuisine in China does not
it's
look
not
like
Chinese cuisine.
It's not Chinese American cuisine. And that's okay. We know the difference. We universally, we just know that it's different. Although, if you really want to eat Chinese food, everybody knows, you go to the restaurant where you see other Chinese, like a whole bunch of Chinese people. Then you know, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so we know that inherently. And so, the opportunity here is to be inspired by, much like, when chefs, particularly white chefs, would go stage in Europe, and then they would come back and be inspired and then use what they had here. So let us be inspired by one another. We can be inspired by one another and respectful of one another. We don't have to recreate the same mistakes that were essentially, same mistakes, but the same appropriations that happened to us, the ones that we rail against. We don't have to do that to one another. We can stage, in all the Caribbean islands and see the difference and be inspired by, what happens there. Look at Floridian cuisine. It's Floridian. They call it Floridian. It's a mashup, right? There are certain cultures, but they, these are the fish. These are the mollusks that we have here.
So let's talk about a very important platform that you and our good friend Clay created, called Black Food Folks. I think one of the things that you started doing when you launched that platform is you had gatherings and conversations. Let's talk a little bit about the vision behind that, behind Black Food Folks, and where it is now, and what would you like it to be moving forward?
Sure. So the story of Black Food Folks was, Clay and I befriended each other at the Beard House. We'd seen each other, and then Nicole Taylor more formally introduced us to one another. Wonderful human being.
Absolutely.
A
That damn
wonderful
hot grease
connector.
is what got me started, you
Yeah,
know, so.
yeah. She's amazing,
Yeah.
legendary. And so Clay and I became friends, and Clay started talking about how people kept saying like, we should get together sometime, or maybe we should get together sometime. And so it was like, let's get everybody in the room. So here's me, that I'm the big dreamer, right? I'm the one that goes like macro.
Right.
Because he said, and he'll tell you this, he was thinking like, get everybody together in a bar, like for a happy hour, have, small group of people, whatever. So I said, my dad has a space. My dad has a space like other Caribbean people. He has more than one job going on in that space, but he has a space. It has a backyard. He's put up a huge tent. I said, let's use that space. We got a lot of room. It's, across the street from the Q train to Parkside. It's catty corner from the from Prospect Park. And, Flatbush has a lot of transportation to there. And then we ended up with over 100 people in that room connecting. All these people that you would just see, like you would go to an event and there's like three is like a big deal, right? But there's usually one or two of us, and we see each other, and we're like, hi, we give the nod across the room, or we go and talk to one another. We make sure to. So we got all of these people in there, and it was a beautiful, transformative experience. And we had several, we had panels after that, and we had several gatherings after that. But then COVID was like, no, y'all not gathering anymore.
Right.
Right. But what do we do really well? We adapt, culturally. That I think is a strength that we have as a people, is that we can adapt. And so, it wasn't working. And so he said, maybe we could do something on Instagram. And then you end up with over 300 hours of programming on Instagram. And most importantly about all of that is that while we participated, right? While we did participate, we did interview people, we had other people do it too. We gave the platform to the community. We gave the platform to the community. And they were, the shows on there had their audiences. People were like glued in. I mean, the show that Cicely and Mavis had, they would be on there for hours.
Yeah, they would be.
And people were still there,
Right.
and it's not just because people are, it's not that people were bored, it's people were fascinated. And we had really important conversations with a lot of people, and that got the attention of, granted, we lived in a particular moment in 2020. It got the attention of some significant brands. And so we were able to recompense the hosts that we had. And then we were able to donate to causes and entities that we believed in, that were doing good work, and I want to give us particular, accolades to Talenti, because, Talenti was really serious about honoring creators, and so what I'm most proud of is that what Black folks did was it was just a culmination of the work of the entire community. The thing about Clay and myself is that by virtue of what we do or were doing, we weren't in the kitchen. We weren't in the kitchen, because one thing about being in the kitchen for a lot of working chefs is that you only know other chefs. That's who you talk to all the time, right? Other chefs. Right. And so we were able to show that F&B, Black people in F&B are all across the gamut. And that was one of the things that that I was grateful for with the Minority Chef Summit, is that, by virtue of me being there, I could let the students know that you can have whatever career you want in this. You can be whatever you want. You can honor your love affair with food or your love affair with hospitality, right? And you may not have to be in a hot kitchen.
And a
Yeah.
small note about that
Uh-huh.
while you're on the subject. Chef Erica and yourself brought the Minority Chef Summit to Haiti. And the impact that was left behind is still being talked about.
Well, I wouldn't be
We had
surprised.
we had chefs in tears listening to the stories that I shared with them, but also the stories that they had a chance to share with some of those students.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you as a person who visited Erica down in, you know, at the chocolate, you know,
Mhm.
um, it's so funny because I came through customs with my chef's knives. I'm a chef, I'm going down there to cook. And he said, "You can't bring those knives in." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to see Chef Erica." "Oh, okay, you can go ahead." I mean, when you have that kind of pull with customs,
You can go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead,
Go
sir.
ahead, sir. I mean, that's just the impact of the people. We got about 5 more minutes here on Roots Heart Soul Podcast Heritage Radio Network. It is such a great pleasure. I mean, like we can go on for another. You
Oh,
said
God.
some of those shows we can go on forever.
There's going to have to be another episode. I can
Okay,
Yes.
no
guarantee you
worries.
that.
Yes, so we just need to catch up to everyone. What are you doing now? What is
Sure.
going on with you? And
Absolutely.
Sure. So, for those who don't know, I got laid off at the end of November, and this past couple of months have been quite a doozy. I lost my kid brother, I lost my cousin, which had made it really hard to kind of think about myself. But
Focus.
yeah, and so I am working on an event, two events actually, at the Flatbush Central Vendors Market. Beautiful space. The real estate developer Urbane bills domiciles, but then also bills. It factors in economic development that mirrors the surrounding neighborhood. So they have more than one property. So the one there, the Flatbush Vendors Market, has a beautiful, beautiful space, lounge,
Absolutely.
a huge kitchen that a lot of chef caterers that we know actually use. And so I am working on an event with them to have a small tasting on August 30th, and then a cocktail and small bites walk around on the 31st, leading up to Labor Day. We plan to mix up the diaspora in both affairs. And, we'll be putting out a save the date on Black Food Folks at the end of the week. But I'm excited.
Please make sure you collaborate with Roots on Soul podcast that
Of course.
we help promote that event.
Sure. And I'm very excited about it because there'll be a live entertainment piece. There's going to be calypsonians. I'm actually got a whole bunch of artists up and coming, and people who haven't been here for quite some time in terms of Caribbean soca artists coming to the U.S. and so we'll have access to those folks. And like Brooklyn during Labor Day weekend is going to be.
It's carnival.
It's going to be hype. It's going to be fun.
Carnival.
And I can't wait to share this with the community. So
Absolutely.
This is something that I've been working on. Clay right now, he's in Seattle. He's working on a cookbook for a Brazilian chef. That man is always flying here, there, and everywhere. But I'm really grateful that we were able to make something like Black Food Folks, and that there's more to come.
Other than Black Food Folks, where can our audience follow you and connect with you and see what's up next?
Sure.
What you're doing, what Black Food Folks is doing next, and so forth.
Okay, so Instagram is the best place at Black Food Folks. My IG is ms_Kali Call. That's my old nightclub promoter name. And just be prepared. If you follow me, it will be zany. Sometimes it's really funny. Sometimes it's full of memes. Sometimes it's political. So it's always entertaining.
Okay.
It's always entertaining.
You're in the club here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
We're in the same club. So
yeah.
I want to take a moment to give a big shout out and super happy birthday to our brother Chef Gregory Collier, who's celebrating his birthday today.
Happy birthday!
So happy birthday to Gregory.
Happy birthday!
Yes, fellow Leo for sure. So I understand.
Happy birthday to Gregory.
I understand. Hey, if you don't know, now you know. It is Leo season. So
yes,
I got the preview.
Yes, it is Leo season.
It is Leo season.
But it's Virgo season right after.
I know,
okay.
which is
so I mean,
different.
I guess the calendar has to continue. Is that what
yes,
you
it
said?
does.
It's Virgo season right after.
That means nothing to you except for in my household. But anyway, Stephan, go ahead and take us out of here, my friend.
Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing podcast we had today with one of the most amazing person that I've met in the last 15 years, Miss Colleen Vincent. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight as well to our audience. Continue to follow us, continue to support us, and the best way to do that is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then share. Talk to other friends, let them know about the podcast. That's how you get to support us.
Thank you.
And then if you know any brands who'd like to connect with Chef Todd and I, we are happy to partner up. So to you all, I bid you a good night. Thank you for joining us tonight, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. See you next week.
You're listening to Roots Hard Soul Podcast on Heritage Radio Network.